Yo, what is going on, guys? Got some more 1.5 gameplay for you guys. I'm absolutely loving this set. It is just so much fun, and there's so many neat decks that are competitive. And this meta is just so much fun because there are so many decks that have a chance. And it's not like there's some rogue decks. There's some rogue decks like the deck I am playing at the bottom is Craniamon Black and has some actually crazy interactions with the purple decks. And if you know anything about Craniamon, you will think that this matchup is completely one-sided, and purple just has no chance of victory, and that's not necessarily true. While Craniamon does really hard shut down a lot of deletion effects, such as the Devimon, the Vengeance Devimon over there, things like Trump Sword and Heat Viper, there are still other options that purple has, especially when you look at a deck like Malomyotismon, and Malomyotismon is another new kind of archetype coming out of 1.5, and it is a very, very sweet deck. First of all, it's pretty budget, and I like budget decks. I think it's a really fun and cool, unique deck where your goal is to get Malomyotismon on the field without actually digivolving him, so you have cards like Arukenimon, like Mummymon, that can just revive him from the trash, either that or Arukenimon, who just plays him straight from your hand for only a 3 cost, and then it's effectively a 2 cost because you're usually that card dies and then Malomyotismon gains 1, and anytime something is deleted, your Malomyotismon will net you a memory. So that's pretty sweet, and stuff like that. It can be pretty hard to for purple to deal with, like Craniamon, but you also have other options like Millenniumon, like Darkness Claw, that lets you attack over Craniamon. For being a 12,000 blocker, Darkness Claw does come in handy. Now my opponent is also playing Lilithmon, so Lilithmon is another super sweet card that allows you to just plus every single time you activate an option card. So you'll see right there, my opponent gets to activate Night Raid for free, effectively 0 cost because he'll pay 2, and then Lilithmon will gain him 2. That is a once per turn, but not a hard once per turn, so it's pretty sweet. And if I did have a level 3 Digimon on the field, the Lady Devimon underneath the Lilithmon also has that really nice inherited effect where you get to just delete any level 3 Digimon on your opponent's side of the field whenever you activate an option card, which is pretty sweet for just crowd control and just general removal. Now, Craniamon does actually just prevent all deletion effects, so if I had something like a Gatsumon, he actually wouldn't be able to kill it. I am set up with the Craniamon down at the bottom, so being 12,000 is pretty significant because Lilithmon is only 11,000, and I'm pretty sure most of the level 6s purple has, if not all of them, are under 12k. Aside from Boltmon and Malomyotismon are the only ones that come to mind that are actually 12,000. But Beelzemon, Piedmon, Lilithmon, they all fall short of that 12,000 mark, so they can't really threaten Craniamon unless you do have a follow-up such as Millenniumon. So Craniamon is pretty sweet. Now a couple issues with the deck. First of all, it's a little bit slow, like most black decks we've been used to. It's centered around blockers, so your goal is to just try to set up a big enough wall to where your opponent can't out you, and you can just kind of go for a single big push. Now, the reboot ability does help with that. Toy Agumon is currently the only inheritor that gives reboot, and reboot lets you basically become active during your opponent's active phase, which is pretty sweet because you can do something like attack during your turn, and then it'll become active during their turn, ready to block all over again. And then you have other cards like the Greymon in my hand that give jamming, that reward you for having the reboot effect, as well as the Metal Greymon that give you security attack +1. So that is really sweet. Now the only issue is if you don't draw Toy Agumon, you'll see I have the Craniamon with the Kapurimon as well as the Metal Greymon, but neither of those are doing anything. Black already doesn't really have a lot of solid, really good inherited effects in this meta. So it's just a little bit unfortunate that if you don't get the proper setup, it can be a little bit underwhelming. Now, that might be because Craniamon is already a really powerful card, so it doesn't feel super bad. But it's just something to keep in mind. So I am also playing the Black War Greymon, not Black War Greymon, but you guys know what I mean. The Black War Greymon, the one with reboot. So that works super well because you don't actually have to have Toy Agumon. It just inherently has reboot, so that way you can attack with your jamming, your security attack +1, etc. So my opponent does have the Mummymon on the field, and Mummymon lets you revive a Malomyotismon for the trash for a 3 cost, like I said, effectively too. I just love that card so much. I love how true to the lore and like the anime, and also the video games that this Digimon TCG is, and just the fact that Malomyotismon, Craniamon are there to help facilitate Malomyotismon is pretty sweet. My opponent also does have a blocker of his own as well as the Impmon. Now, I don't think he's playing Beelzemon, but if he was, I'm not really scared. The only thing that can, like, you know, a little bit that might feel bad is, like, if he gets rid of a Greymon or something. But, like, if I have Guardramon on the field or Andromon, Craniamon just protects all of them. So this is another reason why, like, sometimes if you're running level 7s in a Craniamon black build like Millenniumon or Omnimon Ultra S, which are super powerful cards, you have to kind of pick and choose if you do want to activate them. Because if I had something like one, I think I am playing Ultra S in this build, but you gotta kind of be careful, because if you get rid of the Craniamon, then your opponent might just like be waiting, like they might open the floodgates and allow them to basically just start deleting all of your stuff. So my opponent is actually going to attack, and before I have a chance to block, he's going to resolve that effect of Mummymon, deleting the Mummymon and bringing out the Malomyotismon for a 3 cost, and then he will gain 1 memory, going back to 0. So now this now Malomyotismon can't attack this turn, obviously, since he was just played, but if he does have something like a Millenniumon, that will allow him to just straight up get rid of the Craniamon. Now we'll see there, he did resolve some drawing and discarding off of the Demi-Marimon, but he's going to discard a Trump Sword because it just absolutely does not do anything in this matchup. Or maybe he just, you know, is biding his time until I maybe might get rid of Craniamon, but we do see the Millenniumon there, so for a 6 cost, my opponent is going to Digivolve the Malomyotismon and just get rid of the Craniamon altogether. Unfortunately for him, well, I just drew another one. I do have a Craniamon straight in hand, so for a 4 cost, I will be able to Digivolve it. And, like, there's no other option for me. Really, in this format, like, the only black megas you really play are, of course, like Craniamon, War Greymon for your blockers, and then people also play slash maybe a couple copies of Crest-Garurumon. Blitz Greymon is also another one that is super powerful. It's more of an offensive card, and I think I'm playing a couple copies in this deck because it does just help you push and, you know, control your opponent's board just a little bit with that Digivolve effect. And then of course the piercing is always nice on a 12,000 body. So I'm just going to go Craniamon, and with the extra memory, I'm going to just play the Toy Agumon, and that is the effect I was talking about, that has the reboot ability, and now I will be able to just go ahead and Digivolve into Guardramon. Now, the unfortunate thing here is that, like, Millenniumon is 13,000, so if I decide to block with, like, basically anything, he's got the double Impmon, so, like, he probably will start attacking just to start milling cards and stuff, but, like, I won't be able to block. Now, that might have been a slight misplay. He chose to attack with the Millenniumon first, so now if he does attack with something else, I'll be able to block it without any thoughts of the consequences. If I was him, I probably, maybe he wanted to keep the Impmons on board, like, I don't know, but maybe, like, if I was him, I probably would have attacked with the Impmons first, just to, like, bait out a block from the Craniamon or something like that. So then we are going to see a Mimi played, as well as a Back for Revenge. So Mimi is pretty sweet because it's whenever any player plays an object card, you get to just suspend her, and then you get to gain 1 memory. So it doesn't have a color restriction, doesn't even have a player restriction. So we are just going to see his Impmon attack, and again, like I was mentioning, probably would have been better to do that in the reverse order, but he's going to die anyways. And just getting trash, your trash filled up is good. So I'm going to block with the Guardramon, and the back to the front, I said back to the front, I've been playing too much Yu-Gi-Oh! The Back for Revenge does allow his Impmon to just straight up come back. So it's like nothing happened. Now, it was played this turn, of course, so it can't attack. But he does also still have the other Impmon, but I do also have the blocker. So you'll see black matchups can get really, really grindy. But if you are more of a control and like a kind of like a patient player, I would suggest like trying out Craniamon, because it is the best way to just run a blocker deck currently, and he's a pretty sweet card. I just think his design is really cool and stuff like that. So I'm going to start with one memory. I have no idea where my ties are at. I promise you guys I'm playing the black tie, but I am just not drawing it for the life of me, so my opponent is just going to continue memory choking me. We do see the Malomyotismon on his side of the field as well, so he's got 4 attacks, but I do have double blockers, so that's pretty sweet. I will still be able to survive this turn, probably the next turn as well, no doubt. Now, I am just going to go Toy Agumon and then Greymon straight on top, leaving my opponent with Mon. He doesn't have a Memory Tamer either, so I'm able to do the same thing to him. And then now I will hopefully be building up towards a Craniamon, which will have the inherited from Toy Agumon, Greymon, and Metal Greymon, so I'll be able to get, you know, the reboot, the jamming, and the security tech +1 all on top of a 12,000 blocker. So that's kind of the goal there. I also am playing like a spicy little tech, which is that Beast Cyclone you see in my hand, which is like even more unfortunate that I don't have the tie. Beast Cyclone gives all of your Digimon with reboot and a reboot or blocker a security tech +1. So just all of them. Like, it's a blanket effect for the turn. It is 3 cost, and unfortunately Gardevoir can't attack. But you know, if I had like another Digimon on the field, I could probably like straight up OTK him, which is why I like the card just like as a one of, because you can really like turn the tides with that. So my opponent is going to start attacking, and then we see the Lady Devimon there. Lady Devimon is just such a good card. I talked about her inherited effect a little bit earlier, but the fact that you can just draw 2 whenever she's Digivolved and then discard 2 is super sweet. Now, my opponent does have, I think, 7 cards in trash. So he is, or sorry, in his deck. He is running really low, and that's the thing. Like, you can get your trash set up very fast, but you also need to capitalize on that, right? I don't think he's playing Beelzemon like I mentioned, but you know, he's playing the Lilithmon, so you know, gets the recursion for the option card, so that's really nice. But you do need to kind of like play maybe a little bit more aggressively, but against black, against Craniamon is like the worst matchup for, again, like I said, the reason is because, you know, you can't delete anything, but also because you might actually deck out. So I'm actually just going to straight up play the Andromon there, because with 5 Digimon in play, I only had 2 blockers, and I know what's in my security. There's the best thing that could be in there's an Infinity Cannon, so nothing is going to stop him from like killing me. So I decide to just play another Andromon. That's essentially all I can do. Might have been better maybe to just straight up play Craniamon. I don't know. But with 5 memory, like the best thing he could do is like go Lilithmon, like Millenniumon or something like that. But now I've got 3 blockers on the field. He's got 5 Digimon, and he's going to hard Digivolve for 5 on with the Malomyotismon. So he does have the piercing. So if I if I block, I do need to be aware of that, because if I block and then he attacks over, then he could still game me. So I do need to be a little bit careful about this. But I'm going to just let that first attack with the Millenniumon go through. And one thing to note, for those of you who don't know, piercing, where, you know, when you attack a suspended Digimon and you get to check a security card, does not actually end the game. So if I have 0 security attacks me with piercing, he does not actually win, and that is a little bit big. So he's going to attack with the Gazimon again, attempting to bait out the blockers, but because I know I can't lose, even though he has Malomyotismon, now Malomyotismon's piercing is basically null and void. Like, it doesn't matter. He's basically just another 12,000 Digimon right now. And I think that was like the only way I could have played it, because otherwise, if I had blocked earlier, okay, I saved myself a security, but then he could have attacked over it. I'd lose a Digimon and a security anyways. So that would have been like the worst case scenario. So he does have 3 attacks left over. Like, he could attack with a Vilemon. Of course, he'll lose to memory, but he could. He's got the 3 attacks, but I do also have triple blockers who can't die in any way by card effects. So no retaliation, no Trump Sword, no Heat Viper. So really the only thing I'm afraid of, again, is Millenniumon. Now, again, the Darkness Claw too. So like, if he activates that, I probably just won't block with the Craniamon. But we are going to see, I believe that was the Impmon attacking, and then I block with the Gardevoir. Yep, so we are going to see that happen, and then he's going to mill 3 because of the Impmon. Whenever it is deleted, you get to mill 3. So then we are going to see the Mat played for 4. Now, I'm not sure why he didn't attack with the Malomyotismon. because like I would have had no choice but to block it, right? I have 0 security, I have to block it. So he could have just attacked security, and then I'd have to get rid of one of my dudes. But anyways, we're going to see the map played, and then I'm left with 1 memory. And as a final play, I'm just going to Digivolve the Andromon. I've got 4 blockers. 4 blockers for 3 attacks. I know in this format, Purple has no access to any sort of rush abilities. Like, he's not playing, like, Mimi or Puppetmon or, like, any of that stuff anyways. So, I know he has no access to any sort of rush abilities. I know he has no option cards that can get rid of, like, multiples of my Digimon. So, sitting with 4 blockers and 3 attacks, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. He does actually have 0 cards in his deck, so if he doesn't win this turn, he just loses the game straight up. Now, keep in mind that the deck out rule only applies to decking out during your draw phase. Like, if you can't draw for your draw phase, that's when you lose. It doesn't apply to, like, resolving card effects. So, like, if he resolved another Intmon and, like, he can't mill 3, he doesn't lose. But anyways, he's going to attack a bunch of times here, and I have to block every single one of them, right? Because I just lose if I don't. And he's going to gain a memory every single time something dies because of Malomyotismon. And then he's just going to end things with a Millenniumon. But it does not matter, because I'm just going to bring out my Toy Agumon past turn, and that is GG's. My opponent decked out. That was ridiculous and a very fun game. So guys, if you did enjoy, go ahead, let me know. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that kind of good stuff. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.